Okay, let's play out a scenario. It's the ultimate war game, a thought experiment that lives in the darkest corners of military strategy. The premise? The United States of America versus the entire planet. No allies, no one in their corner, just one nation against everyone else in a simulated total war set in the very near future of 2026. So, who actually comes out on top? The results of a simulation like this are, well, they're genuinely terrifying because it makes us ask a really fundamental question. In a war this massive, what does winning even look like? Let's get into it. At first glance, this just looks impossible, right? One single nation against almost 8 billion people. But the thing is, modern warfare isn't just a numbers game anymore. It's a brutal contest of technology, of strategy, and something that sounds boring but is maybe the most important piece of the puzzle: logistics. Every single modern war starts right here, not with boots on the ground, but with a massive, overwhelming strike from the air. You see, to win any conflict today, you have to own the sky. The US Air Force has literally built its entire doctrine around this idea they call the first day of war, a single, decisive blow that's meant to shatter an enemy's ability to even fight back. And right away, the raw numbers paint a really grim picture for the US. In our 2026 scenario, the United States has just over 13,000 military aircraft. The rest of the world? When you add it all up, it's a staggering 39,000. That's a 3-to-1 disadvantage. I mean, on paper, this fight should be over before it even begins. But here's where it gets interesting, because quantity is not the same as quality. A huge chunk of the world's planes are basically flying museum pieces. The US, on the other hand, isn't bringing a mob to the fight, it's bringing snipers. We're talking hundreds of F-35s and F-22 Raptors, fifth-generation stealth fighters that can see, track, and destroy an enemy plane long before they're even a blip on a radar screen. And that right there, that reveals the real American superpower. It's not just stealth, it's total integration. The entire US military is essentially one giant, interconnected network. So an F-35 can spot a target and instantly, and I mean instantly, send that data to a warship hundreds of miles away, which then fires the missile. The world's coalition? It would be a total mess of different radios and command structures that can't talk to each other. In modern war, that's a death sentence. So, knowing this, the world just throws everything it has at the American forces. They try to create these massive no-fly zones using their best air defense systems. The sky literally ignites. In those first chaotic weeks, the US absolutely decimates 20 to 30% of the world's air power, but the cost is brutal. America loses somewhere between 200 and 300 of its most advanced fighters. It's a huge blow, but it accomplishes the mission. The skies over the Americas are secure, and the war is about to shift to a whole new domain. And now we move from the sky to the sea. If the Air Force is like a sniper rifle, the US Navy is a mobile fortress that projects American power across the entire planet. To put it simply, it's a monster. Now, the heart of that power is its fleet of 11 nuclear-powered supercarriers. And you have to understand the scale here. A single one of these carrier groups has more air power than the entire air forces of most countries. The rest of the world, all combined, has maybe 10 or 12 carriers, and most of them are smaller and way less capable. In a head-to-head fight, it's not even a contest. So the world knows better. They don't try to fight head-to-head. Instead, they go for what's called an asymmetric strategy. Countries like China and Russia would just flood their coastlines with mines, submarines, and thousands of these hypersonic missiles they call carrier killers. They're designed specifically to overwhelm a carrier's defenses with sheer numbers. And in this simulation, it works. They land a catastrophic hit and manage to sink 2 or 3 American supercarriers. But losing those carriers makes the US unleash its own kind of ultimate weapon, a total global blockade. American ships and submarines move to seize the world's most vital maritime choke points. We're talking the Suez Canal, the Strait of Malacca, the Strait of Hormuz, and they just grind all of global trade to a dead stop. No more oil for factories, no more resources for war. The goal is to literally starve the world's economy until it submits. While the big ships hold those choke points, America's elite submarines, the Virginia class, they go on the hunt in the deep ocean, completely unopposed. Within a month, it's estimated they sink about 40% of the world's surface navies. The ships that survive are forced back to their ports, where they're trapped. The US has effectively cut off every continent from every other, and for a world that is now desperate and starving, there's really only one option left. This
This is where the simulation gets truly ugly. After months of airstrikes and that crippling blockade, the world's armies get together for one last, desperate, all-or-nothing invasion of the American homeland itself, pouring across the borders from Canada and Mexico. The numbers here are they're almost impossible to wrap your head around. A coalition force of 25 million soldiers is brought together for this invasion. The United States, it has about 1.3 million active duty troops to defend its own soil. The strategy is as simple as it is brutal. Just overwhelm the defenders with sheer, raw numbers of people. But trying to invade the United States is a logistical nightmare. For one, U.S. soldiers have a massive tech advantage, from better night vision to tanks that can literally shoot down incoming missiles. Plus, they're fighting on home turf with short, secure supply lines. The invaders? They're at the end of a very long, very vulnerable chain that stretches across oceans now controlled by the U.S. Navy. And oh yeah, then you've got the civilian population, one of the most heavily armed on the planet. The result is just a horrific, grinding meat grinder. The U.S. military, fighting for its very survival, inflicts catastrophic losses on the invaders. We're talking an estimated 5 million casualties. But in the fighting, American cities are just turned to rubble. The world's armies are broken, they're out of fuel, and they're advanced stalls. But the damage is done. So at this point, the world is losing on every single front. Its economies are in ruins, its navies are at the bottom of the ocean, and its armies are bleeding out on American soil. And when you get that desperate, the unthinkable starts to seem like the only logical next step. With enemy columns pushing towards the capital, all the conventional rules just go out the window. The conflict enters its final, horrifying phase, the nuclear endgame. See, the United States guarantees it can always strike back with something called the nuclear triad. You've got land-based missiles sitting in hardened silos, you've got nuclear-capable bombers ready to go at a moment's notice, but the real ace in the hole, the ultimate deterrent, is at sea. 14 ballistic missile submarines, each one hidden somewhere in the vastness of the ocean, totally undetectable, and carrying enough firepower to wipe entire nations off the map. They make retaliation not just possible, but absolutely inevitable. And this brings us to the whole point of this entire simulation. It doesn't matter who fires first. The second a single nuclear weapon is launched, more will follow. The result is mutual assured destruction, or MAD. In this scenario, there's no winner. There's no victory. There's only the end of human civilization as we know it. So let's wrap this terrifying simulation up. After looking at the brutal war in the air, on the sea, on the ground, and finally, that nuclear option, we're left with two very, very different outcomes. Here it is, the final verdict. If the war stays conventional, no nukes, the simulation says the United States survives. Its geography and its technology let it fight off the invasion and shatter the global economy, causing the world's coalition to just fall apart. But if that nuclear line is crossed, everybody loses. It is that simple. It is that absolute. So in the end, the simulation says the United States survives. But it survives at a cost that is so staggering, it completely redefines what victory even means. It's a nation of ruined cities standing totally alone in a shattered and broken world. And that leaves us with one final, haunting question. In a world where winning costs you everything, what is the true meaning of power?